Tonight's story takes us deep into the halls of a remote psychiatric asylum, where silence lingers in the walls and every footstep echoes just a little too long. An investigator arrives after rumours of misconduct, but the more he observes, the more the building seems to observe him back. Strange behaviours, rehearsed conversations, patients who speak with unsettling clarity, and doctors who never quite answer the right questions. As the night stretches on, reality inside Briarbridge begins to blur, until the investigator is no longer sure who he can trust or what role the staff have quietly chosen for him. Settle in, dim the lights, and get comfortable. This is the ones wearing the coats. If you enjoy dark, grounded horror stories like this, consider subscribing. Now, let's begin. The road to Briarbridge Asylum felt like it was leading me out of the world entirely, curling upward through dark, silent trees, the colour of dead bone in my headlights. The building finally appeared on a hilltop, an old Victorian shell with modern extensions bolted on like metal grafts. No nearby houses, no traffic, just the institute and whatever lived behind its stone walls. I'd been sent to investigate claims of patient mistreatment, quietly, discreetly. No headlines this time, they said. They always said that. I stepped out of my car, the cold immediately finding the back of my neck. The entrance doors opened before I reached them. A man in a lab coat waited, tall, thin, holding a clipboard tight against his chest. "Mr. Ward," he said. "I'm Dr. Hale. We spoke on the phone." His smile was too quick, as if someone had told him to practice it in a mirror. Inside, the air was warm but stifling. Bleach, old carpet, and something sour that seeped through it all. A receptionist sat behind a plastic counter, also wearing a white coat. Her hands hovered over a keyboard, unmoving for a moment longer than felt natural before she forced a smile. "Welcome to Briarbridge." Everything here was polite but strained, like a school play where not one actor believed in their script. Hale led me down a corridor lined with locked doors and softly buzzing lights. 47 patients, he said. A full staff. We pride ourselves on rigorous care. I caught his eyes when he said staff. He looked away too quickly. We stopped at a small room prepared for me, visitors' accommodation. It had a narrow bed, a desk, and a small window facing a dark courtyard. A camera bulged from the corner of the ceiling. "You said rooms aren't monitored," I noted. "Temporary measure," Hale said, already irritated. "We've had to adjust our operational layout." A vague answer. An intentional one. He left me to settle in. I opened my suitcase, then noticed a sheet of paper tucked under the welcome folder. 3 shaky words. "Don't trust them." My stomach tightened. I'd seen warnings like that before, most written by people so medicated they couldn't focus their eyes. But something about the neat fold, the deliberate placement, made it feel different. Purposeful. I barely had time to slip it into my pocket before a soft knock came. A man in grey, patient clothes stepped inside quickly, shutting the door behind him. He looked young but exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that sinks into bone. "My name's Mark," he said. "Mark Lister." The name hit me. I'd seen it in the complaint report, listed as a reliable witness. His eyes were sharp, too sharp for someone supposedly unstable. "You're the investigator," he whispered. "They won't tell us your name, but we heard." "What do you need to tell me, Mark?" He scanned the corridor, then the camera. "Is that on?" he asked. "Yes." "Then listen fast." His voice tightened. "The people wearing the coats? Most of them aren't staff." I didn't speak. He rushed on. "There was a blackout 2 years ago. Power gone, alarms gone. The patients got out. Some fought, some ran, and some of them took everything the real staff had. Their coats, their badges, their positions." I stared at him. "Are you saying the patients overthrew the staff?" "I'm saying they became the staff," he whispered. "And the real doctors, the nurses, they're still here, but not where you can see them." The room felt colder suddenly. "They put me in observation because I remember who wore what coat," Mark continued. "They can't risk someone knowing who's who. They drug us to keep us confused. They rewrite our files. They make us doubt our own memories." Before I could ask more, a hard knock shook the door. It opened immediately. Dr. Hale stood there, smiling too wide. The receptionist in the white coat stood behind him. "Ah," Hale said. "Mr. Ward, I see you've made a friend." Mark froze like a hunted animal. The receptionist placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "It's medication hour, Mark," she said. "Of course," he muttered, eyes on the floor. As she led him out, her ID badge flipped. I only saw a flash, but it was enough. Patient, Lister, Mark. My breath snagged. Hale noticed and casually turned the badge back around without acknowledging what I'd seen. We reuse old badges, he said. Budget reasons. But why would she be wearing a patient's badge? Hale tilted his head. Mr. Ward, people here take on therapeutic roles. It's a progressive model. He leaned slightly closer. Don't let one confused young man cloud your judgment. He motioned for me to follow him for a tour. As we walked, faint screams echoed down the hall, quickly muffled. Hale didn't react. His clipboard stayed tight to his chest, knuckles white. And I couldn't stop thinking about the note in my pocket. Don't trust them. For the first time in years, I felt something I usually only saw in other people's eyes. A quiet, dawning fear that I might already be too deep inside a place I didn't fully understand. In the morning, Briarbridge looked almost normal. Daylight through institutional windows always does that, smears everything flat and harmless. The corridors were the same ones I'd walked last night, but the shadows were gone, replaced by the hum of routine. Medication trolleys rattling, doors opening and closing, voices kept to that careful soft volume people use around the unwell. Hale met me outside my room, clipboard already hugged to his chest. "Sleep well?" he asked. "I've had worse," I said. His eyes flicked past me into the room, like he was checking nothing had moved. "Good. We'll start with Cedar Wing, if that's agreeable." "It is," I said, "but I want staff interviews, alone, and a couple of patients, same deal." He forced a polite smile. "Within reason," he said again. Cedar Wing had the surface polish, posters about mental health, soft chairs, a TV running some morning show nobody watched. Patients in grey sat scattered around, one rocking, one staring at a wall, one drawing carefully in a notebook. Staff in white coats drifted among them, carrying clipboards and plastic cups. "They look calm today," Hale said. "We place a premium on de-escalation." "Good," I said. "Let's start with your nursing staff." He led me to the glass-fronted nurses' station. Behind it sat the woman I'd met last night, the receptionist who'd brought my schedule. Today, she was behind a bank of monitors and medication trays. "Clinical coordinator Lister," Hale said. "This is Mr. Ward." She stood, smoothing her coat. Her badge caught my eye. "Clinical coordinator, Mara Lister, trace of the patient badge from last night." "Morning, Mr. Ward," she said. Her smile was mild, controlled. "I hope your stay has been comfortable. I'd like to ask you some questions." I said, "Just you and me." Hale hesitated. "I'll be just down the corridor," he said. "Call if you need anything." He walked away, but not so far that he couldn't see us if he turned. I stepped aside with Mara, just outside the station window. "How long have you worked here?" I asked. 4 years, she said. "Started as a nurse, was promoted last year." Her answers came fast, like she'd rehearsed them. "Where did you train?" "King's, psychiatric nursing." "And how did you come to Briarbridge?" "Placement, then permanent post." Her eyes held mine steadily, too steadily. I'd seen nervousness. This was something else, like someone gripping a mask and refusing to let it slip. "Tell me about the blackout," I said. The change was instant. The colour left her face, her gaze flicked to the ceiling camera, then back to me. "I wasn't on duty," she said quickly. "I only heard second-hand. Internal review found no serious harm. Procedures improved. It's all documented." "Yet people keep mentioning it," I said. "People here mention a lot of things," she replied. "Memories get rearranged." "Do you remember who was in charge back then?" I asked. "Same people as now?" She swallowed. "Dr. Cole was our clinical lead," she said reluctantly. "He left, that's all on record." "Left how?" "Occupational health recommended, retirement." Her voice flattened. "Is he still in touch with the hospital?" Silence. "Mara," I said quietly, "off the record. Do you think everything here is safe?" Her eyes shone for a second, like she might cry. Then it was gone. "It's safe enough for the people in coats," she said softly. "That's what matters to them." "Who's them?" But she stepped back, mask snapping into place. "I should get back to my duties, Mr. Ward," she said. "Dr. Hale doesn't like delays." She returned to the station, leaving me with a familiar feeling that she'd almost said something she wasn't allowed to. I asked to speak to a patient next. Hale suggested an older woman sitting alone in the corner of the common room. "Mrs. Havers," he said. "Fairly stable, just imaginative." She was in grey clothes, but there was nothing vague about her. She watched us approach with cool interest. "You must be the man come to fix us," she said as I sat. "Something like that," I replied. "I'm Daniel. Used to be first names meant something here," she said. "Now it's all service user and client, and no one remembers who signed what." "You've been here a while?" I asked. "Longer than some who pretend otherwise," she said. 17 years staff, 3 as madwoman. Guess which gets believed." "Staff?" I said. "In what role?" "Senior nurse on Rowan Ward," she replied. "I ran night shifts. I had keys to everything. Then we had the blackout, and suddenly I'm confused and highly suggestible, and the screamers are doing medication rounds." "Tell me about the blackout," I said. "Lights go," she said. "Alarms die. Doors that should have stayed locked clicked open. Some patients panicked and hid. Some fought each other, and some watched the staff flapping like headless chickens and realized that was their chance." "Chance for what?" "To swap," she said simply. "Coats, roles, stories. When the power came back, half the people who used to wear white were in grey, strapped down and told they'd imagined their whole lives." "That's a serious allegation," I said. "So is what they did to Cole," she shot back. "The sedated man on Ash Ward?" Her mouth tightened. "That's not a patient," she said. "That's Dr. Cole. He used to run this place. Now his notes say he's been here as a service user for 10 years with delusional identification. Convenient, isn't it?" I thought of the man I'd seen last night behind glass, strapped lightly to the bed, mouthing "run." "And Hale?" I asked. "Where does he fit in?" "I admitted him," she said calmly. 15 years ago. Came in convinced spiders were inside his veins. Cried if I left the room. Clever boy, though. Very good at copying how professionals stand, how they talk. Some of them learn the rules and use them better than we ever did. "You understand how this sounds," I said. "Like a classic delusion. I used to be in charge." She leaned forward, eyes fierce. "Of course it sounds like a delusion. That's the beauty of it. If I was making this up, it would look exactly the same, wouldn't it? You lot built a system where anyone challenging the story gets labelled unreliable. They just climbed inside it and shut the door behind them." Her hands shook slightly now, rage or fear or both. "They'll do it to you too if you get in the way. Write their little notes. Inspector shows signs of paranoia. Suggest debrief and observation. Then one day you'll wake up in grey and some bastard wearing your tie will say you've always been here." "Mrs. Havers," Hale called from the doorway, voice cheerfully false. "I do hope you're not upsetting Mr. Ward." "Not half as much as you should be," she muttered. Hale gave me an apologetic smile. "She persistently claims to be former staff," he said. "Unfortunately, her history doesn't support it." I wondered who had written that history. Ash Wing felt heavier the moment we entered. The doors were thicker. The smell was different. Less of cleaning products, more of bodies that had been in one place too long. "These are our longer-term cases," Hale said. "Very entrenched illnesses. We aim for containment and comfort." We passed door after door with small windows. Some patients stared out. Some slept. Some talked to people only they could see. One door made me stop. Inside, a man lay on the bed, wrists strapped to the rails with soft restraints. Not tight, but there. His face was lined, his hair thinning. Even through the glass, he had the look of someone who'd once been confident, authoritative. "That's Mr. Cole," Hale said. "Severe psychosis. Believes he used to run the facility. We've had to reduce stimulation." "May I see his notes?" I asked. "If it's relevant," Hale said. "His condition predates our current concerns." Cole's eyes flicked open. For a second, they focused on me, not foggy, not vacant. Present. His fingers curled around the bedrail. His lips moved. Through the glass, soundless, I read the word, run. I'd had patients beg me for help before. I'd had them curse me, bargain, threaten. This was different. There was no drama in it. Just a simple, exhausted warning. "Does he ever have visitors?" I asked. "Family lost contact years ago," Hale said lightly. "He's very confused." "Was he staff?" I asked. Hale's smile hardened just a fraction. "He's been a patient as long as I've known him." Which, if you believed him, neatly cut off any story where Cole used to sign his orders. "And before you?" I asked. "What matters is the here and now," he said. "We can't constantly relitigate the past." Those were the sort of phrases people use when the past is exactly what they're hiding. At the end of Ashwing was a heavy metal fire door with multiple locks and a barred internal window. "Rowan Wing," Hale said. "Intensive care." The air there felt colder, even though the thermostat on the wall read the same. A faint smell seeped from around the door, antiseptic, sweat, something stale underneath. "I'd like to see it," I said. "Tomorrow," he replied immediately. "The patients there are extremely sensitive to disruption. We don't take unnecessary risks." "Isn't an inspector's assessment necessary?" I asked. "It is," he said, "but safety comes first." I stepped closer to the window and peered through. Another corridor, dim, with a second door at the far end. No movement, no sound, just empty space that felt wrong somehow, like a stage waiting for a performance. "We can schedule a proper walk-through," Hale said. "Supervised." I nodded, though the word supervised sat badly. Back in my room, I sat at the desk and opened my notebook. 2 columns, coats and greys. Under coats I wrote, "Hale, avoids specifics, past fuzzy, uneasy in his own building." "Mara Lister, history too smooth, shaken by blackout, badge changed overnight." Others unseen. "Mark Lister, coherent, specific about takeover during blackout." "Mrs. Havers, detailed memory of working here, story consistent with Mark's." "Cole, sedated, warns me to run, claimed by some to be ex-clinical lead." In the middle, one word, blackout. I took out the folded note I'd found on my first night. "Don't trust them." I turned it over. In better light, I could see faint indentations where someone had started to write more, then stopped. Holding it up to the lamp, I made out 2 extra words, almost invisible. "They write." They write. Notes, files, histories. Everything in a place like this lives or dies on paper. Whoever controls the writing controls the past. A knock at the door made me jump. "Come in," I said, stuffing the note under the folder. Mara stepped in her white coat, expression neutral. "Your updated schedule," she said, handing me another sheet. "Dr. Hale asked me to pass it along." I glanced at her badge again. Clinical coordinator, Mara Lister. "Have you worked here longer than your brother?" I asked casually. She paused. "Just a heartbeat." "I don't have a brother," she said. "You never knew a patient named Mark Lister?" I asked, watching her face. She smiled politely. "We've had thousands of patients through here over the years. I can't remember them all." But something deep in her eyes tightened at the name, like a muscle pulling against restraint. "If you hear anything unusual tonight," she added, hand on the door, "try to remember that not every noise requires investigation. It's easy to misinterpret things here." It was phrased like friendly advice. It landed like a warning. After she left, I locked the door, even though I knew it wouldn't make much difference if someone with keys wanted in. I lay down fully dressed, listening to the building. Somewhere a distant metal clang, a short cut-off cry, footsteps that stopped, then resumed, wheels rolling, a low laugh. Above all, the faint, steady hum of air vents and electrics, life support for the institution itself. I thought about Mrs. Havers' words. "They'll be writing notes about you by morning. If the wrong person decided I didn't belong on the outside, all it would take was a few lines in a file, a couple of signatures, and a different colour of clothes." In the dark, an idea settled into my mind with cold, patient clarity. Before I did anything else, I had to see the records. Not the ones they wanted to show me. The ones they kept behind the doors. Even the doctors seemed afraid to open. I didn't bother pretending to sleep. Briarbridge had a way of sounding awake, even when everyone was meant to be unconscious. Doors clicked in the distance. Something metallic clanged far below, and every few minutes I heard faint footsteps, too light for orderlies, too inconsistent for real staff, too frequent for a proper night shift. I waited until the corridor outside my room went quiet, completely quiet. Then I slipped out. The building at night looked different, longer, narrower, as if the dark had stretched the halls. Emergency lights cast the floors in a low, unnatural blue glow. I headed for admin first. If the staff were truly imposters, the truth was in the paperwork. The reception desk was empty. The staff-only door behind it hung slightly open. Someone had forgotten to lock it, or someone wanted someone to enter. Inside, offices lined a short hallway. Most doors were closed, but one, the medical records room, was unmistakably the one I wanted. Thick wood metal frame, a swipe reader beside the handle. Locked, of course. I pressed my ear to the door. A faint whirring came from inside. Servers. Active. I checked the lock. Modern, reinforced. No getting through quietly. Fine. If I couldn't access the files, I'd find who was writing them. As I turned to leave, I heard voices. Low. Tense. I crept toward the glow spilling from the staff lounge. Through a crack in the door, I saw 3 white coats. Mara stood with her arms folded. A man slumped in a chair gripping a mug. Another leaned against the counter with his hands in his pockets. "He's getting too curious," the man with the mug muttered. "Asking about coal, about the blackout." "That's what inspectors do," the other man said. "It's what we used to do," the one with the mug whispered. "Not what we're supposed to let him do." Mara's voice was tight. "If he looks too closely, they'll put him on the other side." "Only if he gives them reason," the counterman said, but it didn't sound reassuring. "We stick to the notes, we stick to the story." Notes. Story. I was hearing exactly what I feared. Footsteps approached from another corridor. Hale walked into view, looking exhausted, his clipboard hugged tight like a shield. "How is our guest?" he asked. "Resting," Mara said. "For now?" the man at the counter added. Hale boiled water for tea. His eyes flicked to the ceiling vent. "Keep your voices down. Rooms pick up more than you think." They listened. They always listened. I slipped back the way I came, heartbeat sharp in my ears. Their voices faded, but their words didn't. "They'll put him on the other side." I continued toward Ash Wing. If Rowan, where they hid the real staff, was anywhere, it was beyond Ash. The keypad on the Ash Wing door blinked green, unlocked for staff movement. I pushed it open and entered. Ash at night felt like a stomach, warm, breathing, restless. Doors lined both sides, each with its own small window. I forced myself not to look in. Curiosity here was dangerous. The door to Rowan stood at the end. Triple locks, a swipe reader, bars over the window. I leaned in to look, a corridor beyond, darker, heavier. No windows on the doors, just metal slabs with feeding slots. Then faintly I heard it, a slow, rhythmic thud, soft, repeated. Someone hitting their head against a wall. The sound stopped. The silence after was worse. A chill ran up my spine. I stepped back and froze. Someone else was in the corridor, a figure in grey, still, watching. Mark. He walked toward me quickly, eyes sharp and scared. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "They patrol at night. This is the worst place to be caught." "I needed to see," I whispered. "Seeing gets you rewritten," he said. "Do you understand that? They write who you are. Once it's written enough times, it becomes true." He glanced back at the Rowan door. "Anyone who fights the story goes in there." "The real doctors?" I asked quietly. "Some," he said. "Some broke. Some forgot who they were." "And Hale?" Mark breathed out a humourless laugh. "Hale was a patient. I saw him come in. Screamed all night about spiders in his blood. Then one day he walked out wearing a coat." "And no one stopped it?" "He had the keys," Mark said simply. "The blackout gave him access. The chaos gave him cover. And the others, they followed the ones who acted confident." A sudden light washed across the corridor, a flashlight from the far end. Voices followed. Movement near Rowan. Could be Havers again. "Too tall. Check it." Mark panicked. "In here," he hissed, pulling me toward his room. I hesitated. Being found inside a patient's room was practically proof of misconduct, but the footsteps were coming fast. I slipped inside. His room was tiny. Bed, cabinet, barred window. He pointed to the bathroom, and I squeezed inside just as the door opened. The light through the crack showed 2 white coats. Mara, and a tall man I hadn't seen before. "Mark," Mara said sharply, out of bed. I heard him sit up, acting groggy. Couldn't sleep. "Your door was open," the man said again. "Not my fault if locks don't work," Mark muttered. "Did you see anyone?" Mara asked, a long pause. "No," he said finally, "just the usual noises." "You didn't go near Rowan," the man pressed. "Why would I?" Mark said. "I'm not interested in that place." Silence, then paper rustled. "Medication," Mara said flatly. "Open your mouth." There was a swallow, the clink of a pill cup. "Stay in bed," she said. "If your door's open again, we move you." They left. Their footsteps receded. I waited. 30 seconds. Another 30. Then I slipped out of the bathroom. Mark already looked drugged, eyelids heavy, body sinking into the bed. "You didn't have to lie for me," I whispered. He stared upward. "I didn't do it for you," he murmured. "I did it because if you get caught where you're not supposed to be, they'll write exactly what they need to." "What do they need?" I asked. "To call you delusional," he said. "To call you intrusive. To call you one of us." Sedation pulled at him, making his voice soft. "You need to check your own file," he murmured, "before they change it." "Where?" I asked. "How?" He managed a weak smile. "You'll find it. People like you always do." His eyes closed. He was gone. I slipped out, retraced my steps through ash, moving faster now. At the visitor wing I stopped, listening hard for footsteps. Nothing. Back in my room, I shut the door, turned the lock and leaned against it. My heart was still racing, but the shape of the truth was finally forming. They weren't just hiding the real staff. They were rewriting reality. With notes, with files, with whatever story they needed to stay in the coats. And if I wasn't careful, one of those stories would be about me. Patient ward. Exhibits boundary issues, paranoid checking, inappropriate attachment to delusions. All it would take was a signature, a pen, a few lines in a file. I pulled out the folded warning note and smoothed it flat on the desk. Don't trust them. They write. Tomorrow I'd get into the records room. I had to, because somewhere in there was a file with my name on it, and if I wanted to leave Briarbridge alive, I needed to see what they'd already decided I would become. There was no gentle start to the morning. 3 sharp knocks pulled me out of a shallow, aching half-sleep. Mr. Ward? Hale's voice. Too calm, too polite. We need a moment of your time. I checked my phone. 9:07. My neck throbbed from sleeping in a chair. When I opened the door, Hale stood there with his clipboard hugged close like a life vest. Behind him was Mara, hands clasped, eyes fixed on my face as if scanning it for cracks. Is there a problem? I asked. No problem, Hale said, smiling. A routine check-in. This way, please. He didn't explain. Didn't ask. Just walked. I followed. They led me down a corridor I hadn't been shown before. Smaller, older, bare walls, dimmer lights. At the end was a frosted glass door marked Consultation Room 2. Inside was a table, 3 chairs, a camera dome in the corner. No windows. It felt like an interrogation room wearing a lab coat. Please, Hale said, gesturing to the seat facing the camera. I sat anyway. Refusing would go straight into whatever they were already writing. Hale sat opposite me. Mara sat beside him, flipping open a form with my name printed at the top in bold. Ward Daniel, external consultant. She lifted her pen. Last night, Hale began, you were observed in restricted areas. Walking in a building is now restricted? I asked. A civilian entering secured corridors and standing outside high-risk wards at night is highly unusual, he replied. I'm here to investigate, I said. I observe, I inspect. That's my job. Mara wrote something. I hated that pen. Every stroke felt like another nail. Hale smiled gently. We're concerned the environment may be affecting your judgment. Because I walked? Because you did so without informing staff, he said, and because your behavior suggests heightened suspicion. You sent me to investigate misconduct, I said. Suspicion is part of that. Suspicion can also be a symptom, Hale said softly. Mara wrote again. Her handwriting was small, quick, swallowed by the form. What's your diagnosis? I asked. This isn't a diagnosis, Hale said. This is a well-being check. Funny, I said, because it looks like you're building a file. He didn't deny it. Mr. Ward, he said, you've been speaking with certain unstable residents. You mean the ones who claim they used to work here? The ones who believe they used to work here, he corrected. Mrs. Havers experiences role confusion. Mark Lister exhibits persecutory delusions. And what about the badge your receptionist wore last night? I asked. Patient Lister, Mark, ring a bell? Funny how today she's clinical coordinator Mara Lister. That was a clerical mix-up, Hale said. Old badge, wrong clip. Sure. Mara's pen scratched the paper. She isn't my sister, Mara added flatly. I don't know any Mark Lister. The speed and stillness of her voice told me she'd practiced the line. Hale leaned forward. You seem very fixed on these individuals' narratives. That's because they're consistent, I said, and your explanations aren't. Rigid thinking, Hale murmured almost to himself. Mara nodded and wrote. My pulse ticked faster. This is exactly how people get trapped here, I said. You label them, write a few lines, and everything they say becomes unreliable. He tilted his head. Do you believe we would do something like that? I know you're doing it, I said. Mara's pen moved fast. Hale changed tactics. Have you been sleeping, Mr. Ward? Poorly, I said, because I'm in a building where people whisper about putting me on the other side. Where did you hear that phrase? He asked instantly. Staff lounge, I said. 3 coats discussing me by name. He exchanged a quick glance with Mara. We'll need to review that footage, he said quietly. Go ahead, I said. The corner of Mara's mouth twitched. Fear, guilt, or something darker. Mr. Ward, Hale said, settling back. Sometimes when people come into a facility like this, especially when they're predisposed to investigative thinking, they begin to misinterpret ordinary clinical actions. Such as staff movement, medication rounds, observations, even tone of voice. You mean people start seeing patterns? I said. Yes, he said, patterns that aren't there. I'm seeing things that are absolutely there, I said. Mara pressed her lips together and wrote another line. Is there anything you're not telling us? Hale asked. Anything that felt overwhelming to you here? I stared at him. Do you want me to say I'm fragile? Will that make the paperwork easier? He didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his folder and slid a new sheet toward me. My name was printed at the top. Below it, mental state observation, initial. Half the fields were already filled, guarded, suspicious, preoccupied with staff intentions, over-engagement with patient narratives, boundary testing behavior, nighttime wandering, recommend ongoing monitoring. My breath thinned. You've already decided, I said. No, Hale said. This is preliminary. This is entrapment, I said. It's care, he corrected. Mara's eyes flicked to the camera, just once. Mr. Ward, Hale continued, your behaviour since arrival has raised legitimate concerns. You've entered restricted spaces, refused well-being checks, and displayed increasing agitation. I'm agitated because you're gaslighting me, he sighed. That word gets misused. When the shoe fits. Agitation, Mara murmured, jotting it down. I slammed my palm flat on the table. Stop writing about me. They both froze. Then Hale spoke calmly. Mr. Ward, striking the table is inappropriate behaviour. That wasn't violence, I said. That was frustration. Mara didn't look up. She wrote, aggressive gesture. A cold sweat broke across my spine. They weren't evaluating me. They were building a case. I lowered my voice. Let me see the historical staff roster. Cole's file. Havers' contract. Your admission documents. Impossible, Hale said immediately. Then you're hiding something. Or protecting patient privacy, he said. How convenient. Mara wrote persecutory interpretation of boundaries. I felt the ground shift under me. Every sentence I spoke slid neatly into whatever category they wanted. Hale placed his hands flat on the table. This is not adversarial, but if we believe you're at risk of misinterpreting events or placing yourself in unsafe situations, we are obligated to intervene. Intervene how? I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he closed the folder. That's all for now, he said softly. Take the morning to rest. Mara stood and opened the door. We'll check in later. I walked out under my own power, but it felt like walking out of a courtroom where the verdict had already been written. Back in my room, I shut the door and locked it. My hands shook, not with fear, but with clarity. I opened my notebook and wrote, They are trying to make me a patient. Underneath, observation form already completed. Words twisted to symptoms. Staff lounge, confirmed discussions about me. Badge change explained away. Phone signal blocked, Wi-Fi locked. Evaluation framed as care, not investigation. A soft, careful knock interrupted me. I opened the door to a familiar face. Havers. She slipped inside, closing the door behind her. You look pale, she said. They evaluated me, I said. They're writing me into their story. She nodded. That's what they do. They call it paranoia. You notice contradictions. They call it over-identification. If you push too hard, they say you're unstable. How did you stand it? I asked. She smiled sadly. I didn't. That's why I'm in grey. I exhaled shakily. How do I stop them? You don't stop them, she said. You outrun the story. How? There's a cupboard, she said, not the digital records. They control that. I mean the old records. Fireproof cabinets they never emptied. Real paper from before the blackout. I stared at her. Proof. Proof, she said, if you can find it. Where? 2 doors past the staff lounge, she said. Label says store, but the O is cracked. That's the room. It's locked, I said. So find a key, she said, or wait for them to slip. Her eyes softened, not with pity, but recognition. Mr. Ward, she whispered, the minute they decide you belong here, you won't get to tell your side anymore. She reached for the door, paused. Move fast, she said. They're circling you quicker than they did the last inspector. She slipped out. The last inspector, the one they now called Mr. Cole. I sat on the bed and looked at my notebook, my chest tight, pulse hammering. They had the coats, they had the clipboards, and they had a story waiting for me. Tomorrow, I would find that cupboard. Because if I didn't get proof, I'd end up in grey, claiming I used to wear a coat, and no one outside these walls would ever believe I'd been anything else. I waited until the building settled into its strange, heavy quiet, the kind that only happens in places where people don't sleep peacefully. Doors clicked far off. A pipe clanged. Someone groaned into the darkness. When the world outside my room finally went still, I slipped into the corridor. The emergency floor lights cast thin blue strips along the hallway, barely enough to see by. Every shadow looked like it was waiting to move. I passed Cedar Wing, past the reception desk, and reached the corridor that led to the staff lounge. Light glowed beneath the lounge door. I heard a single voice inside, Hale's, low, strained. "Keep it together," he murmured. "It's fine. Everything's fine. You're doing good work." He sounded like someone coaching himself through a panic attack. I waited until his voice faded, then moved past the lounge. 2 doors down I found it. Store, the O split in half. Just as Havers had said, locked. But the frame was old, warped. I leaned my weight into it, slow and steady. The hinge groaned. Another push. Click. It opened. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. The smell of dust and old paper filled the air. My phone's flashlight flickered across rows of fireproof cabinets, heavy, dated relics that didn't match the rest of Briarbridge's modernized wings. The first 2 drawers were locked. The third slid open, old rosters, employment records, ID photos. The first name I pulled nearly stopped my heart. Hale Thomas, patient admission, 2008. His admission photo showed him terrified, hollow-eyed, arms clutched around himself. Not staff, not originally. Another file. Cole Martin, clinical director, 2005 to 2019. The man tied down in Ash Ward, smiling confidently in his staff ID photo, with a coat. My hands shook as I opened the next drawer. Havers Ellen, senior nurse. The real deal. Everything she'd told me was true. I kept searching, desperate for the proof she promised. A stack of files had clearly been disturbed recently, dust smudged, a drawer left slightly ajar. At the front of it was a folder with my name printed across the tab. Ward Daniel. A cold pulse went up my spine. Inside were typed forms already half filled. Provisional admission, observation period, suspicious of staff intentions, inappropriate attachment to delusional narratives, attempts to access restricted areas, possible psychotic break, recommend immediate observation and evaluation. Signed by M. Lister T. Hale, dated the previous day. They had started writing me in before I had even begun my investigation. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, slow, controlled. I stepped back from the door. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Hale's voice floated through the wood, gentle and almost sad. "Daniel," he called softly, "come on out. You don't belong in there." I held the file tighter. Another voice joined him, the big orderly from Ash. "He broke in," the man said. "Exactly what we expected." "He's frightened," Hale answered. "We can help him." Their steps stopped directly outside the door. One of them tried the handle. It rattled. "Daniel," Hale said, his tone syrup-sweet, "you're not thinking clearly. Come out now. No one needs to get hurt." I backed deeper between the cabinets. The door creaked open. Hale stepped inside first, his white coat glowing in the thin beam of my phone. His face looked strangely gentle. Behind him came Mara and 2 other men in coats, blocking the exit. Hale's eyes landed on the open cabinets, on the scattered folders, and finally on the file clutched in my hand. He exhaled, weary. "Oh, Daniel, you lied," I said. "All of you. You swapped places with the real staff." "We protected everyone," he corrected softly. "The staff created chaos. We created order. We gave structure. You don't understand what this place was before." "You were a patient," I said. "I saw your admission file." "I improved," Hale said. "We all did. We learned structure, stability. The coats are symbols of responsibility. We earned them." "You imprisoned the real staff." "That's your interpretation," he said. "They were unstable, confused, dangerous. You've seen Cole. Does he look capable of running anything?" "He looks drugged." "To keep him from hurting himself," Hale said gently. "Or others, like you." Mara stepped forward. "Please hand me the file, Mr. Ward." "No. You're afraid," she said. "That's normal. But the more afraid you become, the more distorted everything will seem. Everything is distorted because you distorted it." Mara blinked slowly. "Paranoia," she murmured, "worsening." Her writing hand twitched unconsciously, even without her clipboard. Hale raised his hands. "Daniel, listen. You came here under stress. You couldn't sleep. You've been hearing things, seeing patterns. You broke into medical storage. You assaulted a staff member last night. That was self-defense. Is that how you remember it? Hale asked gently. Because you were standing outside Rowan, you shouldn't even know what Rowan is. I know what's inside it, I said. The real staff. The ones you hid. His face softened with something almost like pity. For your own safety, he said. And now, for yours. The men behind him stepped forward. I stumbled backward, shoulder hitting a cabinet. Files spilled around my feet. Don't, I warned. No one is here to hurt you, Hale said. We're trying to help you before you spiral. You wrote me in, I said, before I even did anything. Because the signs were already there, he said, and now you're confirming them. Let us intervene before you lose yourself completely. He nodded at the others. Two coats lunged. I swung the heavy binder instinctively. It clipped one man's jaw, staggering him, but hands closed around my arms, dragging me toward the door. Mara stepped aside to let them pull me through. I twisted violently, kicking backwards, sending one man stumbling into the cabinet. Hale flinched. Restraint if necessary, he said quietly. Don't hurt him. He's just scared. I tore loose for a moment, just long enough to run. I sprinted down the hallway, skidding on the polished floor, files still in my grip. Behind me, footsteps exploded into a chase. Daniel! Hale shouted. Stop before someone gets injured. I didn't look back. I tore through the dim corridors, past Cedar, past the empty reception area, heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. Another coat appeared ahead, blocking the hall. I pivoted right into a service corridor I hadn't seen before. The lights flickered overhead. Another figure emerged at the far end. Then another. And another. They weren't chasing blindly. They were funneling me. Daniel, Mara called from somewhere behind me. You're only making this worse. I ran down a stairwell. A metal door slammed above. More steps below. I turned into a dead-end hallway with a single unmarked door. I grabbed the handle, forcing it open. A supply closet. I ducked inside and shut it, clutching the file to my chest. Footsteps gathered outside. Close, then closer. Hale's voice came through the door, quiet and unbearably calm. We know you're tired, he said. Let us help you. I pressed my back against the wall, breath ragged. You're confused, he continued. You're frightened. Delusions always peak before admission. This is normal. Mara spoke next. If you come out now, we'll keep your observation voluntary. Another voice added. If not, we escalate. Their steps shifted. They were all out there, waiting. Daniel, Hale said softly, once you open this door, we can begin helping you feel safe again. His tone was so warm it made my skin crawl. Because now I understood the truth with a clarity so sharp it hurt. Everyone in Coates believed their own lie. And everyone in Grey had once told the truth until the Coates wrote a different version of them. A new knock sounded on the door. Gentle, rehearsed. Mr. Ward, Hale whispered, please open up. I looked down at the file one last time. My name, my fate, signed by people who had rewritten their own histories. The Coates controlled the notes controlled the story, and once they wrote you into that story, you never walked out again. The handle turned. I held my breath. And the door began to open. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. As the doors of Briarbridge Asylum close behind us, the quiet lingers, and so does the question of who really holds the power in the places we trust. If you enjoyed this slow-burn, grounded horror experience, feel free to subscribe for more sleep stories just like this one, dark, unsettling, and crafted to stay with you long after the lights go out. Sleep well, and be careful who's writing your story.